It's time for the Crescent City Connection.
And the Saints go marching on. And the Saints go marching on.
First and 10, let the story begin. It's football Sunday, the Saints marching in. We went from banging our heads to them calling us ain'ts. Now it's lit, say they gon' beat them Saints. First round by, when we make the playoff, everybody hating, cause we get to take the day off. Vince and Boogie, nobody do it better. Now we on our way to our best season ever.
And the Saints go marching on. All right. This is Kyle T. Mosley of the Saints News Radio Network. I am here with Bob Rose from the Canal Street Chronicles. What's going on, Bob?
A lot of everything. And good evening to Who Dat Nation. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to each and every single one of you and your families. I hope you're doing well as well, my friend, Mr. Mosley.
Oh, doing well. Doing peachy keen in the scene. Wish I was in New Orleans. I can tell you that much.
No doubt.
Yeah, man, because we have a mega battle that's going to go down on Sunday against the dreaded and hated Dirty Birds of the Atlanta Falcons. They are coming into town. This is a pivotal game for the New Orleans Saints in so many ways. It's a critical game that the Saints must win. Yes, I said it. They must win this game against Atlanta. Atlanta, if they win the next two games, these guys will go ahead and take the division. So this is why the Saints playing Atlanta and winning this game is going to be very impactful for our season. And it also, Bob, it can impact the Falcons season.
No question about it. I mean, the Falcons sit in a pretty good spot to clinch or not clinch, but make it into the playoffs. Most of the NFL experts, as you look around, the different publications, are pretty much saying that the NFC South is going to have three playoff qualifiers. Whoever wins the division, but then two wild card qualifiers out of the Saints, Carolina Panthers, and Atlanta Falcons. But there are a couple teams still alive in the hunt, as they put it, for that playoff spot. And nothing, and I mean nothing, would be a better Christmas gift to New Orleans Saints fans and the team itself than to put a serious hurting on those Dirty Birds and their chance to get into the postseason.
Yeah. Not only putting a serious dent in their chances, but also making a statement for yourself. Because remember, the New Orleans Saints have had some pretty good competition for 2017. The LA Rams, the Vikings at the beginning of the season, and we've played the Carolina Panthers very well. And now the Falcons. And remember, we really lost that game in the final stretch with the Drew Brees interception by Deion Jones in the end zone, where we could have at least tied the game and put a little pressure on those guys and go and force the overtime. But right now is where we can't say coulda, shoulda, woulda. We got to say what the Saints must do to win. We're going to go through those permutations, Bob. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what happened in the Dome against the Jets on this past Sunday. But we must first congratulate the New Orleans Saints for having 6 representatives in the Pro Bowl for this season. First up is Drew Brees. Then we have the duo in the backfield. The first time this is happening in almost 40 years, where 2 running backs both were voted into the Pro Bowl, with Alvin Kamara as well as Mark Ingram getting the nod. And if I'm not mistaken, Bob, this is the first time Drew Brees actually had a wide receiver with all the yardage he has thrown throughout the years. This is the first wide receiver that has actually been selected, and that's none other than, you can't guard him, His name is Mr. Mike Thomas. And the second-year receiver also set an NFL record, or he copied the NFL record with Odell Beckham Jr., obtaining over 90 catches their first 2 seasons in the National Football League. So congratulations to those guys, but none other than Mr. Cam Jordan. He is also going to be representing the black and gold at the Pro Bowl. Well, hopefully we don't want them to represent at the Pro Bowl, because if they're there at the Pro Bowl, that means they're going to miss the big game, the Super Bowl. So we don't want that to happen. But congratulations to all those guys, and none other, the last but not least, Mr. Marshawn Lattimore. He's also going to be one of our representatives, the rookie cornerback that has really taken the National Football League by storm. Bob, I mean, if you look at all of these 6 Pro Bowlers, what does it mean to the New Orleans Saints? But most of all, what does it mean to the future of the Saints?
It's huge, and especially the second part that you said, the future of the franchise. I mean, Breeze, we're only gonna have the honor of seeing Mr. Breeze on the field for probably 2 to 3 more seasons, and that's if we're extremely lucky. But all these other guys, you look at, Cam Jordan, he's in the prime of his career. I think he's in his 7th season. And the same with Mark Ingram, and Ingram and Jordan are both playing the best ball of their careers. And other than that, Kamara, rookie, Lattimore, rookie, Thomas, 2nd season. And then you look around the rest of that Saints roster, and I know we've talked about it before. Our friend Barry Hirstius and myself, we've both written about it before. Look around this team and beyond, everybody, the national quote-unquote experts like to talk about, the veteran quarterback, Breeze, and wondering how many seasons he has left. And while that is a valid question, look at the way Peyton and Loomis and Jeff Ireland have built this roster, and the impact players that are on this roster that are below 25, younger than 25 years of age, or 3 years of NFL experience or younger, and you have to be excited. I was very excited about this team coming into the season, and excuse me, they definitely have not disappointed me. And like you pointed out, this is the first time in 40-something years that a team has gotten 2 running backs into the Pro Bowl. And I'm not usually a big fan of the Pro Bowl. It's a popularity contest, but these are still the best at what they do in their profession, at least for this season. Lattimore, how often do you see a rookie cornerback get in or even near the top of the voting for the Pro Bowl? The answer is hardly ever. That sort of honor has been reserved to players like Deion Sanders or Darrelle Revis, the players that were considered the best at their positions while they were in their prime. And, we're looking at a very exciting team going forward.
Yeah, and one thing that's really exciting to me is the fact that not only the youth infusion, but this is the first time I believe that the New Orleans Saints players got major recognition nationally by fans. And remember, you can vote as a fan for other people. And that's what was so surprising and shocking to me, that, wow, that means these guys are being noticed around not only with the media and the writers, but also other fans have taken note of the exceptional skill from Kamara, the exceptional skill from Mark Ingram. And we got to give Mark Ingram some props, man. Congratulations, because he has been much maligned by national media in the past whenever he had any fumbling issues or whatever. But Mark Ingram and Kamara, that backfield together has really set the tone for the Saints offense this year, when it usually has been the wide receivers setting the tone for the New Orleans Saints offense. So congratulations to you guys. And, and Cam Jordan, man, just to see how well he has played this season. I remember if it was Jeff Duncan or it may have been Underhill, he gave an interview at the beginning of the training camp, and he said, "This is my defensive line. Remember that? I don't know if you recall that, Bob, but he said, this is my defensive line. And you see how he has taken ownership. You see the captain presence that I know the professor used to always talk about. We need Cam Jordan to step up. We need him to be that leader he's called to be. And this is the season that we actually see Cam Jordan taking that emotional and that leadership presence on the field for the New Orleans Saints defense. Great stuff to see, man.
It really is. And, if I may, I have a quick Cam Jordan story to share from my own personal views. I think you know this about me, Kyle, but when New Orleans, when the Saints were holding part of their training camp in Greenbrier, that's only a few hours from me. So I had the honor of taking my daughters there for 3 straight years. And 2 years ago, we were, and I pay very close attention to how players interact with each other and things like that. And we got ourselves in a good position in the autograph line. And Mr. Jordan, he is famous for interacting with the fans, goofing off, making them feel good, especially with kids, and that's wonderful to see. And I have a couple, memories of, treasured memories with him, taking pictures and things like that with my kids too.
Wow.
But this particular story, Tyler Davison was a rookie, and obviously he's still on the team and playing well as a run stopper. But Jordan, you watched Cam really take Tyler under his wing. And you saw him talking to him. He was in his ear constantly during team drills and between team drills during water breaks and things like that. And even through the autograph line, Jordan is standing and walking with Tyler, and he's talking to him. And when they got close enough for us to hear some of the things that they were talking about, Cam was still talking about pass rush techniques and swim moves and ways to beat blockers and things like that. So the man has terrific leadership qualities, and it's really, like you pointed out, Kyle, it's really starting to manifest itself in this defense now. And that that as much as the talent on the field, we have talked about it before. We have seen this team really gel, almost like a family. And I know that they're like a family to fans in the New Orleans area as well. But Cam means every bit as much to this team as everything, if not more so, than every single player on there, except perhaps Breeze.
So right, man. Because think about the years that we had Vilma, and when Vilma declined in his abilities due to that knee, then we had was it Lofton that came in, right? And I know the Saints wanted to have that same type of leadership out of him. Didn't quite get what they expected from him, and it seemed as though it was lost when they went out and got Stephon Anthony, and they thought the young man was going to be the person to be able to champion and solidify that defensive core for years to come. But always what was missing, and I kept on saying this, and the professor and I used to have these Q&As with one another. Why hasn't Cam Jordan been that one to really be there to step it up? And this season has been that season, I believe, that really shows that he's now comfortable being the leader. So great things, man. I expect to see many more great things out of him, as well as Marshawn Lattimore. God, what else can we say about his technique? Coach Rick Gailey. And keep on battling, keep on fighting, Coach. He's battling through his cancer treatments right now. But he pointed out, he said, man, even till this stage of his career, his technique is mature. That's what he said. His technique is mature for a rookie. So, man, just think about that, Bob. If we have a young guy like that with the technique he has, if we're always able to have a good complementary type of cornerback or two on the opposite side of him, this defense is primed for a really good run, not just this season, for seasons to come.
Without a doubt, and we saw how Lattimore truly affects this defense. Actually, when he has been out of the lineup for a few games that he missed, a couple weeks back with his ankle injury, the Saints actually struggled, and obviously you're going to struggle when you miss a talent like that, but not just in the passing game, but in the running game as well. Because it cannot be understated at how important having a shutdown cornerback is, where you can just say, you know what, you go take their best guy. We're not even going to worry about giving you much over-the-top safety help or any double coverage. And that has freed up the safeties in particular. Von Bell and Kenny Vaccaro have played their best ball when they've been able to play up close to the line of scrimmage. And if you have a shutdown cornerback like Lattimore, and Kenny Crawley is playing extremely well as well, you don't have to worry about having to commit another safety in deep coverage help. And when Lattimore was missing in the couple of weeks that he was, the Saints even struggled. Now they've had their struggles all season, stopping the run as it is, but they really struggled stopping the run. And again, we remember, like you said, the guy's only a rookie. And the sound technique and his footwork. I mean, there's a lot of athletic guys in the NFL, and Lattimore is certainly a terrific athlete. But the maturity that he's shown, and the fine technique, and he seems to be getting better every week. And he's not shy about stepping up and saying, you know what, Mike Evans, I'm going to shut you down. Julio Jones, I'm going to shut you down, even though I'm still on a bad ankle. And you have to have swagger and confidence when you're at that position, and certainly a short memory as well. And the few plays he has given up this year, he's bounced back extremely well also. And he doesn't hang his head or anything like that. We're looking at a Pro Bowl cornerback for years to come.
Yeah, making a name for himself in the Who Dat Nation, but also in the National Football League. He's going to be right there in the NFC with Patrick Peterson, which Patrick was a guest of our show a few years back, then Darius Slay. And on the opposite side in the AFC, one remarkable young man, Jalen Ramsey, as well. We've really got to be able to say that young man has done a phenomenal job at the position in his second season. And Aqib Talib and Casey Hayward. A.J. Boye, young man who came out of Houston. Houston said they wanted to take their chances and not pay him the dollars he was asking for. Wow, what a mistake there, Rick Smith. And Xavier Rhodes, he rounds out the cornerbacks for the Pro Bowl. So got some good young talent there that you look at. These guys, just Aqib and Patrick Peterson are the elder statesmen of these young guys, man. So that's pretty good to see. All right, guys, let's kind of put it a little bit fast forward with the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints have a couple of major injuries with Walford. He has a concussion, and Human, he has a concussion as well. How do you think that's going to affect the Saints coming into this game?
Well, you worry more about Larry Warford, of course, because he's a starter, and they plugged him in at that right guard position when they decided to let Jari Evans go via free agency. And Warford has been at times spectacular from that position. And as we know, with Drew Brees' height, having an interior pass pocket is of vital importance to him, because he likes to step up. He needs to see over that line to be able to complete those quick slants to players like Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn, et cetera. And when Warford went down last week, you did see their. Now I will give credit to Kelemete and Josh Laribas when they came into the game. They played well, but they're not the guys that you want starting in your starting lineup. against a team like the Falcons with the team speed that they have, and they do have a couple big bodies inside. So I'm hoping that Warford is going to be able to give it a go. I haven't heard any news today or within the last couple of days that's saying that they're not ruling him as the definite out yet. So I'm still keeping my fingers crossed there. Man, we know what kind of blocker he is at tight end. And, they're already thin there, having lost Kobe Fleener, who of course was more of a pass catcher. But they're already thin there. And Human has been extremely important for the Saints running game, especially in short yardage situations and things like that. And we've seen the Saints running game struggle a bit over the last 2 games. I know Ingram broke off a big 50-yard run to put the final touches on the Jets game last week. But before that, they had run the ball for less than 100 yards, and they ran the ball for less than 100 yards as a team the week before in that Falcons game. And like you pointed out, Kyle, this team, this offense needs to get Kamara and Ingram going early to have success, and for Sean Payton to roll out his full game plan. So Warford, both of those injuries are concerning, to be sure.
Yeah, one thing that concerns me is the fact that Walford has been a really solid presence at time, but I've got to give it up to Clemente, man. When he needed to step in either on the right or left side at the guard position, he's done a great job for us in compliment to these guys who were out of the game, and I wonder, man, I know Rebus, he had that questionable foul at the end of the game, end of the half against the Falcons, when they say he didn't line up correctly in special teams. But the times that he has been in the game, I've been kind of surprised. He's done an admirable job as well. Where's Landon Turner? That's my question, man. The guy, big guy, 6'4", and he started one game last season. He's been in a couple of games. I think he was 6 or 7 games last season with the Saints in relief at times. What happened to him? Why has he disappeared off of the radar for the New Orleans Saints?
He didn't play well in the preseason either. That's why a player like Laribas even has a job on the roster, because really that swing offensive lineman position, it was Landon Turner's to lose coming into the preseason. Based off of the off-season signings of Warford was going to replace Evans, and you knew Pete was going to be at your left guard. You knew about your tackles. So really that swing interior lineman position, the second position behind Clemente, it was Turner's to lose, and he played poorly enough to do exactly that. He opened the door for a player like Laribas, and you're exactly right, Kyle. Josh has done an admirable job, when stepping in. Turner played his way out of a job, in my opinion.
Yeah, practice squad, man, can't believe that. Had a lot of hope for that young man. But anyway, let's move on to these other guys that are on the squad right now. One thing that's concerning is the lack of separation our wide receivers are giving to the opposing cornerbacks. The only guy that seems to be getting open on a consistent basis was and still is Mr. Mike Thomas. So what you notice, those guys were keying in on the run a little bit more on last Sunday, the Jets, because of the fact Ted Ginn was not there. So that shows the importance of Mr. Ginn to our offense, man. The Saints haven't taken really too many long shots down the field over the past several weeks. Do you think they turn it around and kind of put a couple out there against the Falcons this game coming up?
I'd like to see it. I would definitely like to see it, especially if Ginn is back in the lineup, because that has been his strength throughout his career. Now he has done a fantastic job on the quick routes and the intermediate routes. And who to really thunk that Ted Ginn Jr. would be your second most consistent wide receiver on the roster. If you'd have told me that at the beginning of the season and then told me that the Saints were 10-4, I'd have laughed in your face. But yeah, you have to give it to Ginn. And he's really showed a much more rounded game, to him, and even at this stage in his career, that's doubly impressive. But yeah, I'd really like to see him back in the lineup and see them take a couple deep shots because those Falcon safeties, they do like to play close to the line of scrimmage, and they did not respect the Saints downfield passing game the first time that they met, and as a result, the Saints had, I think, 50 or 55 yards rushing as a team because of that extra man in the box. Even as terrific as the New Orleans offensive line is playing, and even as talented as these two running backs, Ingram and Kamara, are, it helps an awful lot when you're only having to deal with 7 guys in the box instead of that 8th guy. So it would not surprise me whatsoever to see New Orleans take a couple shots down the field early in the game, and even if they don't complete them, hopefully that will back the Falcons' coverage up a little bit. Even if they don't take the shot with Ginn, Michael Thomas can get deep, Willie Snead can get deep, and they even like to run Kamara out wide in the last couple games. We'll run a deeper wheel route for him in the back out of the backfield. Now, in order for that kind of play to be successful, obviously the blocking up front has to be on point because that's a longer developing pattern. But again, I would like to see them spread the ball around and deeper a little bit more instead of east to west from sideline to sideline. I think that'll benefit them not only in this game but going forward into the playoffs.
Yeah, those screen passes to the wide receivers out haven't been as successful this season, man. I'd like to see Sean Payton kind of shelve a few of those a game, man, because faster defenses, when we tried it against the Rams, you notice it went nowhere. We tried it against the Falcons, it went nowhere. We tried it against the Jets. Those safeties of the Jets and corners and the linebackers, those guys are fast. So we always have had trouble running those screenplays like that against faster defenses. So and more athletic guys too. I've got to point that out because you can be fast but not athletic. So,
right.
So I would like to see us modify that a little bit. Man, why don't we fake it? Fake like Drew's going to throw it down to those guys, then go downfield, something to that nature, because I think a lot of times these teams are keying in on those plays, and that's why they're stopping the plays. So hopefully there will be some modification from Sean Payton in his game plan when it comes to that. What's going on with our third down? What's going on with the offense as a whole? I mean, we're 3 out of 10 on third down, man, and that is very concerning. The Saints have always been over 50% for the year. Now we are just cracking around 30-something% conversion on third down. Where is the problem? What's lying into that issue right there, Bob?
The number one problem is, and you already said it earlier, when you were talking about how the New Orleans complementary targets have not stepped up, and it's been a problem all season, but it's really manifesting itself in the last month or so. When the offense's third down percentage has gone even further down. And I mean, I think they're at 38 or 39% for the season, which is lower middle of the pack. But the last few games, it's been even worse than that. We know what you're going to get out of Michael Thomas. We know what you're going to get out of Kamara, and we know what you're going to get out of Ingram. And those three are as dangerous a trio as exists in the NFL. But Willie Snead, Ted Ginn, and we just said Ginn has had a good season, but Brandon Coleman, Kobe Fleener before he went down with injury. Where are those guys in key situations? And you hate to keep bringing up Saints teams of past, But I think the comparison is valid in this case because in the past you would have a reliable third down target in Lance Moore or Jimmy Graham or Darren Sproles. They would make the plays on third down. And these other Saints targets now, they just aren't doing that. And I keep talking about him every week, waiting and hoping he's going to break through. Willie Snead. Mm-hmm. Willie Snead, his first 2 years as a Saint, made a living off of big third down receptions. And really over the previous 2 years, there were situations where everybody watching the game on TV or everybody sitting in the stadium on a third down situation, third and medium or even third and long, look for Snead. Breeze is going to look for Snead. Everybody knew it, and he still found them, and they still converted more often than not. Where are those plays now? Willie Snead has got to be the biggest disappointment on this entire New Orleans roster. And I like the guy. I do. I think he still has a wonderful skill set as a wide receiver, even if it's a third down slot guy. But he's not producing, and that's a huge, huge problem. And again, they're going into their biggest game of the season and a potential playoff berth. 3 for 10 or 4 for 14, et cetera, on third downs. That's going to send you home early.
Yeah, it sure will. It's going to send you home. It's going to send you crying. And we don't want us to be the ones crying. And we have my man, BB, Brendan Boylan, on the line. What's up, Brendan? What's happening out there in the East Coast?
Hey, what's up, guys? Actually in the Atlanta area for the next few days before I go back up to Charlotte. And then New Jersey. I mean, you want to talk about bouncing up the East Coast a little bit for me. That's what this holiday season looks like. But it seems like I haven't been on with you guys in quite a while, obviously, between finishing up my undergraduate degree, only 4 months left of that, and also everything at Gardner-Webb. I'm also doing interviews just kind of random interviews. I interviewed a guy last week, good story. Senior soccer player, was a walk-on, made his way to the first team and scored a goal in the closing minutes of his senior night. So kind of doing random interviews popping up like that. It's been a busy time, but like I said, it's been a long time since I've spoke to you guys and been on the air, so I'm just happy to be around. It feels good.
Well, we always are happy that you're here, man. And I've got to stand in for the professor here and ask you, well, how are the grades?
Man, keeping my scholarship, and that's what's important.
Okay, gotcha.
The big one for me this semester was at the university that I attend because it's a private education. It requires a communication law and a communication theory course, which are the two highest fail rates amongst my major. Finished off law last year and then theory this semester with a B+, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Congrats.
Hey, it's like I said, 4 more months, and we'll see where I end up. After that, not only do I graduate with my undergraduate, but my current contract with the university is up. So before getting ahead of myself, you kind of got to get your mind ready for that quote-unquote free agency period and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, well, we're going to land you a job, man. We're going to do everything we can to help you get out there, man. So don't worry about that. Let's put a game plan together and just call me up and talk to me, and I'll kind of fill you in on some techniques on how to go about your recruiting efforts. Okay?
Hey, it's going to be a fun time. What Bob was saying was absolutely right. What I was going to say about that was Willie Snead. And, Bob, I thought it was funny you made the comparison to Lance Moore. I think a lot of us did over the last 2 seasons. And the rumors coming out with Willie Snead coming in out of shape after the suspension and this and that, you kind of expected him to get the wheels churning a little bit later on in the season, and here we are still waiting. He had a nice catch in the game against the New York Jets, but outside of that, nothing to show for. And people who know that I do work with you guys here, they always ask me about fantasy advice. And early in the season, I said, listen, Willie Snead's going to go undrafted. in a lot of your leagues. And if you're looking for a deeper option in a PPR league, that's your guy. And I'm sure I let some people down with that one. But Willie Snead on third down, that was something we expected going into the season. Hasn't really shown up. Michael Thomas, let's be honest, it's crazy that Drew's first ever Pro Bowl receiver took this long, but Michael Thomas, it was well-deserved. I thought it was well-deserved last year.
Yeah.
And he got snubbed out of that one as well. But you got to find other options. I think Bob just hit every single point on the head. You can rely on Thomas, Ingram, and Kamara all you want. But when it comes to it, I think the biggest piece we're missing from this year's Saints team, and I'm not complaining at all. I mean, let's be honest, guys, this is one of the best seasons we've had within the last 5 years. But you look at years past, and it is that slot guy. It is that number 2, number 3 receiver who can come up big in situations. Ted Ginn, good season. A lot better than I thought it would be. And you got to praise Ted Ginn for that, and also realizing what he said earlier in the year was Drew Brees is the quarterback that prolongs careers. And that's what I'm looking to do. He's done a good job in New Orleans, but outside of Kamara, Ingram, Thomas, where's that other guy? And I think that's what we're still looking for. Fleener has been a disappointment since he signed the deal. Essentially, since the ink dried, Fleener has been a disappointment in New Orleans. So you're looking whether you saw Tommy Lee get involved a little bit the last time against Atlanta, whether it be Tommy Lee, whether it be Willie Snead, and if Coleman can fix the issues of last week, which I'm not worried about. And guys jumped on his back real quick about those 2 crucial fumbles, but at the end of the day, I'm not worried about that. That was his first 2 fumbles of his career, never really posed a fumble problem, and Coleman has had a very good third year. They say the third year is the jump year for a lot of guys, and I see that in Brandon Coleman. But one of those guys has to really step up and be the guy down the stretch, not just on third down, but also an option. Especially when you get in these playoff games, you're going to expect Thomas to be doubled, and you're going to expect defenses to try to hone in on one guy, so it's about that next man up mentality. So if you're asking me for a guy, I'm really going to look towards Brandon Coleman to step up, not just on third down. He's a big body receiver. I mean, 6'6", ran a 4.5 at Rutgers. That's the guy I'd point to. But I'd really like to see Tommy Lee, mostly because it was the professor's guy was Tommy Lee. So I'd like to see Tommy Lee get a little more involved in the offense opposed to just special teams.
Well, the one thing about Brandon Coleman, man, he may be a little bit in the doghouse, but we still need his blocking ability, right, Bob? Brandon Coleman with those 2 fumbles, the first 2 fumbles in his career in the National Football League, but those were 2 critical fumbles when the Saints were driving down the field and positioning themselves into scoring. So Brandon Coleman, I agree, man, because a lot of teams, Bob and Brendan, they're not really keying in on Brandon Coleman, are they?
No, they haven't been. And I've been a big Coleman fan and a big Coleman supporter. I do agree that this is the most polished he's looked in this third year. And frankly, that's the guy I'm waiting for to step up, and sort of expecting and keeping my fingers crossed that he will, because there's just only so long you can wait for Willie Snead. Like you said, Brendan, we're coming into game 15 now, and if he hasn't done it, he still has the capability of making a few select plays. But I think we would all be making a huge mistake if we counted on that to happen. Coleman has shown much more consistency. And as angry as I was and frustrated as I was at those fumbles and where they happened on the field and when they happened in the game, it's not like the guy has been prone to fumbles or big mistakes like that his whole career. And you can tell that Drew has confidence in Brandon as well. And that's the bigger thing. I mean, we know he has the ability, the physical ability. He does seem to have developed at the maturity, and his quarterback has confidence in him. And if a quarterback, especially at Hall of Fame caliber like Brees, has confidence in you, you know you're going to see the target in a big situation I just hope that I don't think it's if it happens. I think it's when it happens. We'll just watch and hope that Coleman will be able to convert those situations into big plays. And last year, the 2 Atlanta games, Coleman got open, and Coleman made plays against that Falcons secondary. So I would not be at all surprised to see that opportunity happen again this Sunday.
Yeah. Well, and also, man, Brandon Coleman, his blocking ability amongst the wide receiving core is hands down the best out of the whole core. He has helped to spring Mark Ingram on a few downfield runs, as well as one for Kamara against the Rams, I believe. So, I mean, yeah, I think he deserves to be in the mix, but I think now is the time we need to have some surprise guys, like you said, to step up. And, Brendan, you're right. Somebody needs to be the one to step up other than Mike Thomas. We need to have one of these wide receivers to say, all right, you can trust me. Get me the ball. And hopefully Coleman has learned. And I'm pretty sure Mark Ingram and a couple of those other guys who have had fumbling issues have probably pulled him to the side to kind of work with him on, once you get that football, hold it high and tight. And I'm concerned about Mike Thomas, man. Sometimes when he gets the football, he's all over the place swinging that ball around. He's going to have to do the same thing. I remember Marcus Colston had that problem early on in his career. He fumbled the ball in a couple of critical games, namely won the NFC Championship against the Chicago Bears. So those things have to be addressed. And right now, since that was a game day one, yeah, okay, you can breathe a little sigh of relief. But now let's kind of refine the technique, guys. I was looking at a stat that ESPN had on the New Orleans Saints, as well as the rest of the National Football League. The Saints are first in the league when it comes to yards per carry. That's right, yards per carry on first down. The Saints are averaging 4.98 yards per carry on first down. And you look at some of the situations on Sunday, I think Sean Payton got a little pass happy, and wasn't patient enough to be able to allow the run game to continue on. And I think that also contributed to the fact that we were limited in some of the yardage that we were putting up until Mark Ingram put that 50-yarder to have the exclamation point at the end of the game. So hopefully we will see a little change there, guys. BB, tell me this, man. Coming into the season, I know everybody was kind of what type of Saints team we were on the field. Now that we have fielded this team, and this team is primed to be able to win the division, how are people in Charlotte, in North Carolina, viewing the New Orleans Saints?
I don't think there's a whole lot of viewing the New Orleans Saints in Charlotte. I think a lot of it's right now the focus on the Panthers trying to make a playoff push, but also the allegations with Jerry Richardson and the team being up for sale. That's where a lot of people's thoughts are, is the direction of this football team moving forward in Charlotte. They don't have a lot to say. At the end of the day, the Panthers' chances of winning the division are, along with the Falcons, is extremely difficult at this point if the Saints can just take care of business, because the Saints have the tiebreaker over the Panthers, and at the same time, I've said it on my radio show plenty. I've said on the Butler's Pantry plenty. I think that the Panthers are fool's gold. And at the end of the day, you look at who they've played, you look at how they've played. Outside of the win against New England, I'm not really impressed by anything they've done. I've never been a big Cam Newton fan. I've said he's the most inaccurate quarterback in the league. Maybe not statistically, but the way he's overthrown receivers, like when he had Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funches that are that big, and watching him airmail checkdowns to McCaffrey, who is an extremely talented running back, 78 receptions on the season for Christian. But when it comes to the Panthers, I think the fan base is excited because there's another opportunity to make a playoff push. But I think at the same time, more than anything, they're more scared about themselves and their future than they are anybody else in the division. And it's unfortunate because this is a team that, remember, was in the Super Bowl and went 15-1 just 2 seasons ago.
Right.
And there's a lot of call for Cam Newton potentially being out.
Really?
From the fan base. From the fan base, yeah. The fan base is very split when it comes to Cam.
Wow.
Especially with the ownership up in the air, saying that maybe it's time to go ahead and look to grab some assets for Cam Newton while you can.
Wow. I mean, just thinking about this guy is just a couple of seasons removed from being the most valuable player of the National Football League, and now the fan
I've also
base
got word that
ranking.
inside. Now, do I really think they're going to part ways with Cam? No, I don't. But I've also heard from some inside sources that are close to the Panthers is that the guys inside the building aren't huge Cam fans either, but they realize he is the face of the franchise, and that's why he's stuck around. I've heard from inside that the antics have gotten on nerves of people, but at the same time, as I said, the inaccuracy and the up and down seasons and the injuries, and that's the big one, the injuries since the Super Bowl run has been a concern. Remember, he had shoulder surgery in the off season. He looks extremely inaccurate for the first half of the season. It's gotten better, but it hasn't been great. Some guys really believing he might only last about 2 or 3, maybe 4 good years left. Not saying that's as many years as he plays, but good years left. Because you got to remember, the guy's, I believe, 28 right now. Mm-hmm. So if you give him 4 years, you get him to 32. Where are the wheels at 32? And I think that's what people are concerned about. Okay. Is when Cam Newton doesn't have those legs anymore, can he do what Michael Vick did with the Eagles? And yes, Vick was still, in my opinion, the most mobile and electrifying quarterback in terms of his feet that the game has ever seen. But you remember those years in Philly, he did get to a point where he wasn't necessarily a pocket passer, but he was more comfortable in the pocket than we'd ever seen him before.
Right.
And the concern is that Cam cannot do that.
Interesting.
So here's your breaking news. There is some concern about Cam's future in Charlotte, whether it be the next 4 years, maybe a little further. But that's where the concern is between Cam Newton in the future and also what's going to go on with his ownership group. I think they've realized that division is probably not going to happen. But at the same time, some fans that I have talked to believe that at this point, is it worth, and I quote, is it worth going to the playoffs and getting spanked in the wild card round, or do we get a better draft pick?
Okay. We shall keep an eye on what's happening in North Carolina with the Panthers. You know, let's kind of project, guys. Going into this game on Sunday, Bob, what are some of the keys that the New Orleans Saints need to really pay attention to? Other than we talked about Willie Snead, but what else is out there that the Saints need to really pay attention to?
Well, number one is very, very, very simple, and it's cost them the game in 2 of the last 3 meetings against Atlanta, is turnovers in the red zone. And one man in particular, and he's a phenomenal player, is Deion Jones, the amazing linebacker for Atlanta. And to put those words in the same sentence, turns my stomach a little bit. But the man is a terrific player, and last year in the first meeting between the 2 teams, he returned a Breeze interception, I think 85 or maybe even longer yards for a touchdown, which was basically the exclamation point in that game. And then, of course, he put the nail in the coffin a couple weeks ago with the interception in the end zone. A tremendous athletic play on Breeze on that post pattern in the end zone. But New Orleans needs to take care of the ball and look to see where that young man is lining up, and maybe, just maybe, go away from him when they're inside the 20. And I think, and I apologize for not being able to join you guys last week, following the game, but or the week before last, excuse me. Kamara going out of the lineup in the first series, in that first game against Atlanta, you cannot undervalue how much that meant to the entire New Orleans Saints offense. Because Ingram and Thomas were both beat up as the game went along, and they were in and out of the lineup. And all three of us have talked about it all night now. Where are the Saints' other targets? And that game in particular was more glaring than any other game this season, that they don't have anybody beyond those big three to step up and be able to rely on to make a play. So I would like to see some of these secondary guys make a play. I think they might have to score a lot to win. This might be a shootout because we know the two Atlanta backs, Freeman and Tevin Coleman, the Saints linebackers cannot match up with them athletically, and even the New Orleans safeties have had a hard time. So I really hope that New Orleans can get a couple turnovers again, force Matt Ryan into a couple turnovers early on, and convert those opportunities. We didn't necessarily, we saw three interceptions, and New Orleans converted a couple of those into points. But they need to, in a game like this, you need to capitalize on every single opportunity you get. And we know the Saints lead the league in first down rushing average, and they're second in the league in rushing average as a team. They need to run the ball. Control the ball, not necessarily control the ball on the ground, but with that threat of a running game, that opens up the entire playbook. And Atlanta and New Orleans games we've seen some very high scoring games in the past, and I kind of expect to see the same kind of game this coming Sunday.
Well, a shootout is, I guess, imminent, to be honest with you guys, because both Atlanta and the Saints, it's going to be a fight. I don't think anybody is going to really give until the bitter end, like most of the contests we have seen over the years against Ryan as well as Breeze. I think the Saints learned a valuable lesson on last game, is not to take for granted the speed of that linebacking core, and also not to take for granted the fact that you've got to be a little bit more creative in utilizing your players. And hopefully Sean Payton can do this. And, man, we lead the league. I think we're one of the league leaders when it comes to balls thrown at the line or thrown short 1 yard passes. We've got to stop that. We've got to go down the field. We've got to put pressure on those safeties to be able to open up the run for us, to at least have them to think that we're going to have the opportunity or take advantage of any opportunities down the field. So right now, man, the New Orleans Saints are in a prime position to be able to come away with a win. But I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, if Kamara did not go out of that game, it would have been a different story. It would have been a different story. And this time it's going to be a different story. If he's able to stay in that game, we will come home with the win. All right. Brendan, what's your take? What are your thoughts as far as what the Saints should possibly do in order to come home with a win on Sunday against the Falcons?
Well, I'm with you guys. Obviously, with Kamara getting injured on that first drive and out of the game with the concussion, I felt like Sean Payton had to cut his playbook in half. And that's never a great thing. And especially when you have such a special player like Kamara, it's very hard to find someone on the bench and say, okay, next man up, do everything that Alvin does so well. And unfortunately, the Saints just don't have that guy. So I think Kamara being in the game is going to be a very important part of this game. I think if the Saints can stay healthy, let's face it, the Saints lost 7, whether they were starters or got crucial time in that game. They lost 7 of them. throughout that Thursday night matchup. I think staying healthy's a big thing in the game. Watching Atlanta play Tampa Bay on Monday, very average on the offensive side. Now, we have to respect the fact that you have Julio Jones, who might be the best receiver in football. And you have such a dynamic backfield with Coleman and Freeman. That has to be respected. Mohamed Sanu, who is an extremely underrated number 2 receiver. You have to respect all that. But even with all those weapons, Matt Ryan and that offense against Tampa Bay looked kind of average. Nothing special, nothing flashy. They only won by 3, and Tampa had a chance to tie there at the end. And the kick was long enough. He just pulled it a little bit because he had to get so much power behind it. So I think the big thing is going to be limiting the big plays of that offense, whether it be Julio, whether it be Sanu, whether it be Freeman. For me, it's the defense. You don't have A.J. Klein placed on IR. You have to let Manti Te'o, he's got to step up. Robertson has to step up. A great point by one of you was that the linebacking core and the safeties have struggled to keep up athletically with Freeman and Coleman. You got to find someone, and someone's got to step up to really slow them down. I think the more that you slow down those running backs, and the more that, as crazy as it sounds, the more that you force the hand of the reigning MVP to throw the ball, I think the better off the Saints are going to be.
Oh, good point.
But when it comes to the Saints on the offensive side, I think it's going to be plain and simple. It's going to be the same formula it's been all year. In years past, to win these games against Atlanta, Breeze has to throw the ball 45 times. Breeze cannot throw the ball more than 30 times in this matchup. You got to let Ingram and Kamara get going. And that might be a stretch because you do have Kamara and Ingram, as we've alluded to throughout the program. They catch a lot of swing passes, and they're essentially extended handoffs. That's essentially what it is, to get your playmakers into space. For me, that's the key. You got to, as dumb as it sounds, you have to get your playmakers into space and make sure that their playmakers don't. And fortunately, it's something that you can read really well. For the Falcons, it's the backfield. For the Saints, it's the backfield. You guys know what you're going to do. You guys are familiar with each other. You guys are so similar in so many ways when it comes to the Saints and the Falcons. And for me, it's that simple. Whichever team can stop the backs is the team that's going to win. Unfortunately, in the last game, Drew threw the interception. Deion Jones is the most athletic linebacker in football. He made a play. I don't think it was the most – I think it was an extremely ill-advised throw by Drew, but Deion Jones made the play. We're going to have to get that third down percentage up. Defense has got to get some stops. Bob, not going to agree with you on this one, which is weird because you and I usually agree on 95% of the things that are said. I don't think this is going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be extremely similar to that Thursday game. It's going to be a low-scoring game where two teams know exactly what they want to do. And from there, it's just going to be a fight. And whoever can shut the backs down is going to win the game.
Okay, good. Good stuff, guys. So you mentioned one guy that was critical to the Saints, and that's A.J. Klein. He's now on injured reserve for the rest of the season. He just had surgery to repair a sports hernia in his groin. Painful to even think about that. But
yeah.
I mean, we're going to miss him, man, in his presence. But fortunately, we had a guy that manned the center of the linebacking core last season. That is Robertson. So hopefully he, as well as Manti Te'o, can be able to come in and fill in and do an admirable job. But I'm going to tell you this, guys. We got to put more pressure on Matt Ryan. You know, he's getting the ball out. He's getting the ball out quick. I know Lattimore was a little hobbled the first time, but we've got to put some pressure on him. And when they're in position to be able to sack him, they've got to execute the sack. I mean, we missed too many times where I know Cam Jordan was right there a couple of times and missed the opportunity to sack him. So those guys up front as well, you've got to hold your positions a little bit better. That's Davison, Aminata as well as Rankins. You guys got to do a lot better because Freeman is coming to town. Guys, and those guys are going to try to run on the Saints, I believe, to establish that play action fake. Watch that early on in the game. All right, those are just some of my little tidbits. Let's talk. How do you see the outcome, Brendan? Okay, must have lost the Brendan. Are you still there?
Yeah. I lost you, actually.
Okay. What's the outcome for the game?
Well, just to allude on your final point real quick, and Bob, you're going to have to double-check my stats here. But since Alex Okafor went down with injury, Cam Jordan has not had a sack. Is that correct?
I think he's had a half sack. So basically he has been, he's still gotten nice pressures. But I believe he does have one half sack in the last 3 games, which isn't the high output that he had up till the point that Okafor went down. So if you're not dead on, Brendan, you're close.
And I think that speaks volumes on how much Okafor meant to this defensive line.
Yeah.
So to go off your point,
good observation
there,
man.
Kyle. Somebody got to step up, whether it's Kakaha. I know Muhammad's got a little bit of action as of late. George Johnson had a sack against the Jets. Somebody got to step up on the other side and create more opportunities for Cam Jordan. And that's not going to just be in this game, but going forward into the playoffs. For me, the outcome of this game, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be 24-17 New Orleans. I think when it comes down to it, the Saints offense is going to be a little too much for the Falcons, and I think the Falcons offense is kind of shaky as it has been the last few weeks. I don't think that this is a New Orleans defense of years past where a lot of teams can say, we can get it right against New Orleans. Obviously, all the promotion that this team's doing about having the dome loud throughout the game, I think that's going to definitely affect the Atlanta Falcons. And Matt Ryan, you can play there as many years as you want against New Orleans in the Superdome, but nothing can truly prepare you for that noise and the energy that the fans bring. So I think the Falcons offense has some big plays, but the Saints limit them. They only put up 17, and the Saints are able to get 24 on the board. And I'll go ahead and say Michael Thomas caps off another multi-TD game. He's going to get 2 receiving touchdowns against Atlanta, and the Saints pull it out by 7.
All right. Bob?
I'm actually going to go in reverse, and I'm going to say my score first, and then I'll tell you why. I know what I said about don't be surprised to see a high-scoring game. Having said that, and I haven't written my prediction article yet, but I know what the score is going to be, and I'm going to predict that New Orleans wins 27-21. And the way that I kind of see the game unfolding, I completely agree with every point you made about both teams' offensive backfields, Brendan. And I defy you to find any two teams with 2 running backs on their roster more talented than these 4 guys that are on the field. And they're almost interchangeable the way they run, too. As much as I hate Atlanta, I do like watching Freeman and Coleman play. They're interchangeable in what Ingram and Kamara mean to the Saints offense as well. The way I see the New Orleans offense attacking the Atlanta defense, Ingram is going to be your bell cow as far as the running game goes, and he has been most of the season. But I think Kamara's main usage is going to be as a pass receiver and not just on the screen pass. I think they're going to try to use him, and we saw it against the Jets too. I think they're going to use him splitting out wide, maybe even taking a couple deep shots with him, and certainly using him to match up against the Atlanta Falcons linebackers and challenging them athletically. And what that could do, and I hope that it will happen, that'll open up and thin out the Falcons secondary because their safeties are going to have to respect Kamara and especially maybe moving up into the box. To protect against Ingram's rushing and swing passes as well. The other Saints receivers are going to have to make plays down the field. The Saints are going to have opportunities down the field in this one. They're going to have to at least, if not convert, scare the heck out of the Falcons to back off a little bit, and that's when these two running backs and Thomas will take over the game. I can see the Saints moving the ball extremely well, but as history shows on both sides, no matter how good the offenses were or how bad the defenses were, whenever you expect a high-scoring game, you do get maybe a middle-scoring game or low-scoring game. So that's why I went with 27-21. As far as the Falcons offensively, I want Ryan, just like you said, Brendan, I want Ryan to throw the ball. And I want him to throw the ball to his wideouts. As talented as Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu are, especially the matchup Jones against Lattimore, that's almost pay-per-view worthy. And Crawley, we can't say it enough. What a fine season that young man has had. And I'm looking forward to the matchup against Sanu with him. And those guys have to hold up. Julio is going to probably get his catches. Sanu is probably going to get his catches. But if those two cornerbacks can make more plays than they give up, then that's going to free up the Saints safeties. And that's what's important. That's what's going to be the key in this game, is because we already know, and all three of us have acknowledged it. I'm a big Craig Robertson fan, and he's by far their most athletic linebacker, at least healthy, that's on the roster. But they cannot match up athletically with Coleman and Freeman out of the backfield. They need those safeties to be able to do it. And you might even see some double teaming if they try to move Tevin Coleman into some intermediate routes or move him out of the slot like they sometimes do. And we need Kikaha. I think you said it, Kyle. We need Kikaha or Muhammad or someone to make some pass rush plays and force Matt Ryan into mistakes from the other side. Because we're seeing it the last few weeks. Cam Newton is consistently getting triple teamed at times, I saw, against the Jets. And as good as Cam is, and he's still applying pressure, it's now late pressure, later than what it had been earlier in the season. And the quarterbacks are having that millisecond or that second and a half longer. And that's all you need in this league to make a play down the field. Kikaha is a talented pass rusher. And I think if he gets some one-on-one opportunities, I'm hoping that he will be able to make some plays as well. But yeah, I think New Orleans is an angry team too, guys. Not only for what happened against Atlanta a couple of weeks back, and forget the officiating. I mean, that made the fans more angry, fans and coaches more angry than it did the players. The players knew that they left an opportunity out on the field, and they're angry about that. I think that they're angry that they did not play well against the Jets last weekend. They had an opportunity to blow that team out of the building, and that game was a lot closer than what it should have been. So I think that we're going to see a very sharp New Orleans Saints team from the beginning of the game, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, truly. I think it's going to be an excellent opportunity for this team to put some pressure early and often on the Falcons, and we got to set the tone. But one thing Coach used to always say, we need our special teams to be special. So Will Lutz, Morstead, and Tommy Lee, we need you, especially Tommy Lee, we need you to keep doing what you're doing and give us some closer looks to the field. Get to the 30, 35, to 40. If you take it home, I'm not going to be mad at you, Tommy Lee. Do you do. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a good game, guys. I see the game going down 31-28 to Saints in the win column against the Falcons. All right, guys. Any last tidbits, any final words you'd like to say, Brendan?
It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a well-fought game, as it always is. Just sit in, soak it, enjoy it, because this is going to be the closest thing you get till the playoffs when it comes to playoff quality football, and just get used to it, because I hope this team goes a long way.
Definitely. What about you, Bob?
Brendan, I agree with you. The playoffs basically start now, and it's going to be a playoff atmosphere on both sidelines, and definitely inside that Superdome on Sunday. it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. I wish I was fortunate enough to be able to attend it. But I love this team, guys, and you know that I have from the start. I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond to really, and if you think about it, they have not played terrific football in really the last month, with the exception of the Carolina game. They have struggled at times. So this is probably the most definitely the most adversity that the entire team has faced since after those opening 2 weeks, where they came out with losses. And I'm excited to see how they respond. And I think that they're going to come out of the gate swinging. Again, I expect a very sharp New Orleans team, and I think our boys are going to give us an early Christmas present. I do.
Awesome. That's what I need to see under my Christmas tree. All right. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you, BB, and I appreciate you, Bob, for being on with me tonight. The rest of the crew, as well as to you and all the fans and who that's in the black and gold. Man, we wish you guys a healthy, wholesome, and happy Christmas, but also a happy New Year. We will be back on the air after the New Year. We will also try to, you know what, let's have an after game. We'll try to have an after game special against the Falcons, man. If you guys are up for it, I'm up for it. Let's try to do that, because this is an important game that we're going to witness on Sunday. So
I like that idea. I'm in.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's do that. I'll let you know when we're about to sign on. Well, this is Kyle T and Drew Brees. We're looking forward to you hitting that 70,000 yards of passing on Sunday against the Falcons, and that'll be another feather in your cap. But you join an elite squad with Mr. Peyton Manning and Mr. Brett Favre. So let's have a good time, guys. Saints, we're praying for y'all to stay healthy on the field, but let's just have a good time in the Dome and witness a great game on Sunday. This is Kyle T. Mosley of Saints News Radio Network with Bob Rose of the Canal Street Chronicles, as well as Brendan Boylan of, well, Saints News Radio. Yeah. You know, I was going to say Professor Speaks, man, but, you know, this is going to be it's already been an emotional Thanksgiving for me, as well as I know Derek and his family, man. Just not to have the professor around during the holidays is it's tough to handle. So, but hey, praying through it. I know he's in a better place. God be with y'all, and let's have a great time. Who dat, baby? Take care. Bye.